Hey there, Joy Beland coming at you with another episode of CMMC Explained. This time I wanted to talk to you about the SC.3.177 practice. It's the FIPS validated cryptography. I have to admit, cryptography is my nemesis. But in each week, when we walk through our 17 domains and 17 weeks peer groups, we are taking a particular domain and all of the practices in it, and we're fleshing them out. So we have a bunch of implementers and consultants in this peer group. We limit it to 20 people so that we get a really nice mix and a good focus for that 90 minutes on answering all of their questions. And then we have the provisional assessors right here at Edwards, Performance Solutions, provisional instructors, and outside experts. Now, the outside experts is kind of like the perfect mix of magic, if you will, that brings expertise to these domains that's really incredible. And I wanted to share this one with you because when we walk through the modules and the algorithms and then what is FIPS compliant versus FIPS validated, we have some experts here explaining this, and this is really great stuff. So we have Tom Conkle and Kelly Hood from Optic Cyber Solutions. And then we also have Chris Roberts from the Hillbilly Hit Squad. I just have to remember that one. It's not the easiest one to remember, but Chris Roberts is memorable. If you're not following Tom Conkle, Kelly Hood, Chris Roberts on LinkedIn, you really should be, because this is just a wealth of information, and it's so much fun to see how they present this and make it more meaningful and manageable. So enjoy this. We wanted to share it with everybody. If you have any questions about CMMC, if you're interested in the CCP certification, we teach our first class this week. We also have a team of consultants ready to help out, and we have a team of provisional assessors ready to go as soon as we get our authorization as the C3PAO. So we're in all areas of CMMC, and we'd love to help you. All right, we're all in this together. Enjoy.
Wonderful.
Let me know when you want me to flip to the next screens. We'll just walk through this and go ahead.
Yeah, so these are slides that we've used for some of our clients, and it's really kind of an intro for, a lot of times when we'll work with them and they're like, what does FIPS validated mean? What do we need? The whole thing is kind of a new concept. So we tried to kind of illustrate here. And so we've got a few slides we'll run through quickly before we jump over to the NIST website, where you actually can look up and see what is FIPS validated. But here, I think you're exactly right, Warren. This is such a beast of, it's just, so many of the other practices, tie into this, and it's hard to figure out, number one, when you need to use it and what is actually FIPS validated. So really, the goal is, we've got our picture here saying we've got some kind of document. We want to push it through the crypto module that's got the algorithm in it. And on the other side, we want it to be encrypted, and we want to make sure that information is protected. The problem is that if you go to the next slide, I don't know if you've probably seen similar images like this before, is people like to go around controls, so even if you've got a gate, in the middle of your road, you can see the lines in the grass where everybody's just driving around it. So that's really the problem that we're trying to solve here with having the FIPS validation. If you go to the next slide, and why the CMMC program was created with NIST in partnership with the Canadians as well. So it's really to help people make sure that the document or the information is actually being encrypted, that you don't have a product that we're bypassing, whether you're bypassing the algorithm or not using it properly, or bypassing the whole module, or basically we want to make sure that we're going through the correct way to make sure it's encrypted. So if you go to the next slide, because if we're not going through it, you're basically just ending up with the same data. So there's a lot of places where that can go wrong with, if we don't have the algorithm implemented correctly, or the module, or the module's not using the algorithm correctly. So that's where this can really go deep, and we won't get into all of the nuances there, just because I know we're trying to get to the so what do we do about it portion of the conversation. But really, and that's where we get back to slide 6. The next one, we wanted to highlight that there's also a lot of mixed messaging out there. As you'll see a lot of products claiming, some of them are claiming they're FIPS validated, some of them are claiming they're FIPS compliant, some of them will say they're FIPS relevant. I don't know. There are a lot of words that are used, but the two most common ones here, and we wanted to highlight, FIPS validated really means that that whole product has undergone the testing and it's passed that. So that we know that it's, in order to go through the CMMC program and get the module validated, the algorithm also has to be validated. So by making it through that process, we know that both sides are good, or both components are good, and that they all work together as appropriately. FIPS compliant means that components of the product have been validated in some capacity. So maybe it's just the algorithm, but we don't know how the algorithm interacts with the rest of the product. Maybe it's, an old version, but it's basically saying, there's some assurance here. We think things are going well, but it's not the same level of testing that's done. And that's what the FIPS validated means. But the problem, if we go to the next slide, that we're all running into right now with is how the backlog really. So this in the gray box here, you can see the statement pulled from the CMMC website that, the cryptographic module validation program, run by NIST is who's responsible for providing these validations, and they know they're behind. So they are aware of that. And unfortunately, it's just a long process because it's a lot of testing that goes into it. And that's because we've got the labs, if you can see kind of the sub bullets there, the CSTs, the labs are verifying the module, making sure that it's good, doing all the testing, and the people from the CMMC program pull in validators to review and actually validate the results. So it's just unfortunately a long process. So what they're recommending is to use validated modules currently on the active list, which is great, but things are constantly changing and there's new versions of products coming out. And so it really means, that we're kind of falling behind. So I wanted to just kind of run through that quick overview of just a little bit of, not really history, but background on some of those things that we tend to look out for. That we really, that compliant and validated don't mean the same thing, of how these components work together, why it is important that there is some sort of validation, because we want to make sure that the encryption is actually working as appropriately. But it is also a problem because it takes a long time to get through that process. So I'll pause for just a second, but next we wanted to actually take you guys to the website and walk through that a little bit and show how to look up and see if the products are, how to find those actual FIPS validated products.
Ellie, can you go back to the previous slide, the one you had compliant versus, there we go, that's perfect. Mm-hmm. So the way I've always described this to people is most of us drive, or most of us have cars. So if you look at they do crash testing. So we all go into a car dealership. We all know that the car we're looking at is a crash rating of say 4 or 5 from a safety rating. And we know that because somebody took an entire car and slammed it into 25 different walls at different angles and at different speeds, and they all took the thing. That is the validated. Compliant is, well, we took a wheel and we took the exhaust and we took one seat and we slammed them into the wall and they were fine. Everything's okay, not a problem. Yeah, you'll be okay. That's the difference. And as humans, we understand it that way.
Yeah, no, I love that example. That's, I think, a great way to look at it.
Exactly. So
I guess the question I would throw back to the group on this one is, have you found, or what have you done when you found that you have a choice between patching and remaining FIPS validated? And how do you navigate or thread that needle when that's the case? That's a question we seem to get a lot of from folks that are getting ready.
Kelly, what are you guys recommending to your clients for that?
Yeah, because you never want to tell somebody not to patch. And so I think yeah, that's such a hard question because they're so far behind, but really I don't know, Tom, if you've got a better answer other than we are struggling with the same questions and just trying to look at the bigger picture in specific cases, but in general, I have a hard time,
right,
telling anybody not to patch.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it is a case-by-case thing, and understanding what was actually validated and how it was validated, to go through it to see, does the patch have anything to do with it? And actually maybe that's a good kind of pivot. And actually, I don't know if you wanted to finish the slides here just as a reference. And I think, Joy, you're going to provide this to everybody, because on slide 8, there is the link to the VP program itself. And there is a way to track what is in progress, right? Which is another thing that we hear all the time from the vendors. The vendors say, oh, we're already certified, or we're going to be certified, or we're in the process of it. If they're in the process for it, you can check, right? So there's a way to help monitor, you know, well, where they're at and, you know, what's going through the process. And then, I don't know, Joy, I can walk you through the process, or do you want me to take the screen? I'll walk through just looking up an example.
Let me make you a co-host so that you can go ahead and take over and do the demo.
Okay.
And then we will, with your permission, then we'll go ahead and share this deck with everybody. I think that would be great.
Yeah, and the big deck is, you know, a lot of people we run into are like, they don't understand why, right? Why does it matter? Why do I have to have FIPS validated? They're backlogged. It takes forever to go through the NIST process. So why are you making me go through it? And I think we've had a lot of success in just helping people understand why, right? The why is we have too many cases of people that just using products or claiming that they're doing encryption that just aren't, right? And I'm forgetting the name, maybe someone can help me, but, you know, just earlier this year, there was a full drive encryption capability that was out there. It's been out there for a long time, and everyone just realized that the crypto mod was not being used, right? The data wasn't actually being encrypted. If you went in, you looked at the configuration and saw it, it was just going around it. You know, another example that I like to use is, you know, granted, we're talking about crypto specifically and everything, is like TLS, right? Everyone always says, oh, I'm using TLS, it's completely secure. TLS is a communication protocol, right? It talks about how we do the handshake, how we make sure that there's integrity, and it has the ability to install an algorithm within it for encryption, right? So just because you're using TLS tells you nothing at all about the encryption. It depends on what algorithm that you've put into that module on how it's doing it, right? And the TLS protocol does allow a null algorithm. So you can have, you know, the HTTPS, the little icon here that says that it's locked in, right? But if they've put a null algorithm in it, right, the data itself is not being encrypted. You can still guarantee the handshake is being properly done. You're talking to the server that you think that you are. The integrity of the information is coming back because that's all part of the algorithm of the TLS protocol in of itself. But that's why it's important to understand the whole piece of it, right? Of what really are you doing? And without actually going in and looking at the certificate, it's harder to do. So I just wanted to show, you know, we'll send out the slides, you'll have the link, but, you know, if you go to the NIST, the Crypto Mod Validation Program, right, it's easy enough to find, to go into. And then whenever you're working with a vendor or someone and they tell you, yep, we've been certified, right, just come to the site here. They give you the ability to search. If you don't want to search, you can say show all and see every single one of them, but it's really difficult to, in my opinion, to scroll through. You can see the scroll bar over here on how many of them have been validated.
Wow.
So even though we say they are backlogged, and they are, I don't want to make any excuses for them. They definitely are. There have been a lot of products that go through. The vendor should be able to give you a cert number, right? If they have been through the process, and just come in here and verify it. If you don't know the cert number, right, they haven't given it to you, and you just want to see if something is on the list, we can just search for it, right? So we're going to look for Microsoft's BitLocker here. Scroll down and you can see there are a lot of different versions that have gone through the certification process, or the validation process, sorry. So we'll just pick the first one here, 3502. And then, right, as a consumer, there's still a lot of expectations on your behalf of what you have to do, right? So whenever we say Microsoft BitLocker has been through CMVP, right, and it is validated, right, with cert 3502, what does that mean, right? So when Microsoft submitted this through, they submitted BitLocker with the Windows operating system loader, right, for Windows 10, Windows 10 Pro, Windows 10 Enterprise, 10 Enterprise, whatever. But you can see the different versions that it's actually been through. And this is, I think, getting back to Sam's question. Sometimes you'll see specific patch levels that were gone through. So back to your specific question, you know, I would say, okay, well, in this case, if it's a Windows 10 patch that's still going to use the BitLocker Windows OS loader, and the patch isn't changing that, I can have a reasonable assurance that I can install this patch without worrying about it, right? But it does require you to know a little bit, about how it was done, or what was actually submitted for validation. We can see that it was tested for 140-2, right? We know everything's moving over to 140-3 now, but 140-2's, just because it was tested through -2 doesn't mean it's not valid. And we can see that here, that's still an active cert, right? All the way through the end of July in 2024, right? That's the other thing that, just keep in mind, right, is when is it going to be sunsetted out? Another key caveat, not only what did they send it through, but things that you need to be aware of as a consumer, right? So in this case, it says that it has to be operated in FIPS mode. If you don't check the box in BitLocker to say run in FIPS mode, none of this matters. You're not using it, right? So we know now as a certifier, well, I've got to check and see what are their configuration guides? How have they configured their devices? Are they actually using it in the certified mode? Or are they just telling me, yeah, I use BitLocker? We also can continue to read this says that not only do you have to have the Windows OS loader, it has to be on the boot manager, right? With the boot manager running as well, right? So there's another caveat. If we're not, I can't imagine why anybody would change how we're booting into Windows, just because it's easier to use what Microsoft gives you. But if you did change it, right, that changes as well. But anyway, so there's a lot of information here on the caveats as to how the system has to operate for it. And then you can see the specific test configurations. So you have additional assurance that if you're using these products, that for a fact that someone has tested the crypto, made sure that it's effective or anything. But this is just a test configuration. If BitLocker with bootloader, boot manager in FIPS mode is running, you should have a reasonable assurance if you're on these operating systems that you're good to go. And then all the way back to, if you remember Kelly's picture, right, all of this is about the module, right? Does the module work? Does it apply the algorithm properly? And then we can get down here and say, what algorithms was it tested for? So for encryption, we know we can use AES, and then we can actually go over to the algorithm validation program and learn more about that specific algorithm if we want to, and how it has to be used and everything. But I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole there. But so we can actually see which algorithms are approved. So if they come back and say, we're using, I don't know, drawing a blanket, another algorithm, right, for our BitLocker, right, you have those questions of, is it actually going to work or not? So anyway, just wanted to kind of provide a little bit more background. Hopefully it's a refresher for many people, right? I know we all spend all our time on the NIST website looking through it and everything. But this is how we know, rather than just, having a vendor tell us, yep, it's on the list.
Would we have to use the desktops, laptops in the list to be FIPS validated config?
No, that's just giving you the comfort level to know that that's how it was tested, right? In the labs, that's what they used. If there's not a caveat, they will sometimes have caveats specifically with appliances. This is the appliance that has to be used, right, in order to prove this module is here. But if it's not in the caveat, it's just additional information letting you know that it was tested. Does that help?
Good stuff. That was wonderful. Thank you. Really appreciate that you guys did that with us.